Welcome to Screen Chat. I'm Neil Bashins, and this is the show where I sit around with friends and talk about film and television and pop culture. And today, we're drinking scotch, too. So this is a very special episode. Welcome back in. With me, as always, is Warren Nightingale.
Hey there. How's it going? Hey, look at that scotch. This is, you're upping your game here, Neil.
I'm not up in the game. Actually, our other guest today, my good friend Ben Vickery. Ben, say hello.
Afternoon, everybody.
Ben is up in the game. Ben... pre-show texted me saying, hey, should I bring scotch? Because I just recently kind of started getting into drinking scotch. And I was like, well, sure. And then you showed up, and I wasn't sure if you were going to partake or not. I'm like, he might. I don't really know. And
well,
lo and
thank
behold,
you,
he
Ben.
did.
This is what a treat.
I brought glasses for everybody.
Fantastic. So, Ben, yeah, so tell me, what are we drinking here? Recap this. We talked about it a second ago, but hit us again.
Really quickly, we're drinking a Highland Park limited release series called Velknut. It's number 2 in the Viking Legends trilogy. The first one was
recap that whole thing for us.
Okay, so the first one was Valkyrie, and the whole thing is the Valkyrie are the Odin's war maidens, and they were responsible for they'd ride the winged horses down and to the battlefields, and they would claim the heroic dead for entry into Valhalla. So that was the Valkyrie. That was the first one. I missed that one, unfortunately. I would have liked to try it. But the second one, which is what we're drinking now, called Velknut, which is the 3 interlocking triangles. And it was the brand used by Odin to mark the worthy dead for entry into Valhalla. So the Valkyrie would know who to get on the battlefield. And then the third one, which is scheduled for release sometime in the next month or two, is called Valfather, which is obviously a nod to Odin and the master of Valhalla, and yeah, that's where we're at now. So this is a beautiful little scotch, not terribly peaty, not super hot on the alcohol, very nicely drinkable. Lots of nice fruits, raisin.
Wow,
yeah,
I'm enjoying it.
It's really nice.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful, beautiful little scotch. My personal favorite. Enough that I bought 3 bottles of the limited release. So.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for providing the jet fuel for today. And yeah, Ben, we are actually talking about pop culture today too. We're going to be talking about the Amazon Prime television show, limited or not limited series. It has a second season coming. The Boys, based on a comic book. And as always, I'm ill prepared.
You got a scotch in your hand. What more do you need?
Well, I'm prepared in that regard, I guess. So, yeah, not so ill prepared then. I think it was written by the series is produced by Garth Ennis. He also did.
Yeah, he did like Preacher and
Preacher. That's the one I was trying to think of here.
Yeah, Supernatural. I think he was creator on too.
Yeah. No, sorry. The showrunner's Eric Kripke.
Oh, Eric Kripke, right.
He did Supernatural.
Right.
Garth Ennis was the writer of the comic books.
That's right.
And he did write Preacher. Also, he had a big run on Punisher, among other things. And the artist on the comic books was Derek Robertson, and he's been a comic book artist on all kinds of stuff. I was kind of looking him up for a second.
Yeah, he also writes on that show too, I think.
I think they're credited on there a lot, so I'm guessing they must have some creative input to the show.
Seth Rogen is also part of
Seth Rogen is a producer on the show, yeah. I've never read the comics. Have either of you?
I have not.
No? Okay, so we'll be sticking mainly to the show then. It's my understanding, though, from a little bit I've read in, that the show diverges quite a bit from the comics. That it was more like they took the same idea, but instead of just reiterating it and regurgitating it as a television show, they took a lot of the same themes and just made it as a TV show. So,
yeah, plus I think that the comics being that it was out 10 years ago or 13 years ago.
Probably some of it is dated.
Yeah, so I think some of it probably even just the use of social media, let's say, for example, as feeding into the themes is probably shifted slightly. So I'm sure a lot of it has been updated too.
Yeah, so we'll jump right in there. The overall, a lot of the big themes here I really, really dug on the show. Stuff like the social media and like superheroes being a brand and being part of a corporation. This is a really cool, I think the flip side of the MCU coin. Ben? What did you kind of got into it because I yapped at you about it. Hey?
Well, it was on my list. Like it was high up on the list. It's just limited time.
I know this sucks. We need to win a lottery so that my job can be watching TV. But.
Exactly, but it was high up on the list, and just very impressed at how they adapted everything. Like the fact that these heroes aren't they're not heroes anymore. They're
real people.
Yeah, well, and
This is what would happen if real,
horribly
actual,
damaged.
flawed people
Yeah.
had superpowers.
and they are. I think most importantly, like some of them are just horribly damaged. A lot of them are just jaded. You know, like they struggle. You can see how they struggle to be something for so long, and then they just sell out, right? To get to that pinnacle.
They cave to the inevitable.
Exactly.
Queen Maeve at one point has a line to Starlight, the house always wins. When Starlight keeps trying to like be
Exactly.
herself and go, you know, be true to herself, and they just keep turning whatever she does back into, oh, we can brand this.
Yeah, no, it's no matter what they do, they spin it for their gain, not for the person, but for their own personal move. You know, it's very much like you see corporations nowadays. I mean, you know, Pride Day, right? Everybody's got a rainbow up. You know, like even some of these corporations that probably contribute to some really
Bad
horrible
terrible
things, you know,
yeah.
some really, you know, anti-LGBTQ stuff. They're still thrown out there because it's good marketing. I mean, Colin Kaepernick, right?
Yep.
Nike comes out with that, not because they're like, this is the right thing to do, but because it's like, our demographic is not the rich white people that are all pissed off about this. Our demographic is everybody else. Like, this is proper. So that kind of thing, like just the absolute realism in how this was based is impressed me to no end.
Yeah, and I'll take a further pin on that point, that sometimes I look around and you see things like you referenced, like a lot of places having a pride flag up and stuff like that, and you go, well, they're big corporations and they're just in it for money. They don't have a soul really, and so they're just doing this for the money. The flip side of that is that because they do this stuff, good things do come of it.
Absolutely.
And I think in the show, that's embodied in the character of Starlight. That Starlight, even though they keep corporatizing her stuff and they're just doing it to make money, at her core, Starlight is still trying to be a good person, and she's like the new kid on the block. So she hasn't been jaded yet, and she's fighting through it. And I think her arc over the season is kind of like not getting beaten down by this stuff. So
Well, and I think on top of that, they really show that, you know, yeah, they do good and they inspire all these other people to be better, but really they're not good. Like,
no, they're normal people.
yeah, they're
So some of them are good.
some of them are awful.
Some of them are
are
assholes.
good. Some of them are okay.
And we're gonna have full spoilers too. Anybody listening, I'll put a tag on the on the show notes. But yeah, if you haven't watched the show, there's no point in you listening to the show. Go watch it.
Yeah,
But
spoiler: the Scotch
Yeah.
is good.
the Scotch is fantastic. Warren, you had something there.
Well, first of all, just that sort of peek behind the curtain of celebrity culture is kind of interesting. You know, certainly the show is taking some shots and some fun at our obsession with superheroes in this sort of time and era in which superheroes dominate our box office. But even just the idea of just how marketed, and I know this is something you guys started talking about there, just how marketed brand and image is. Because even in the show, even just, you know, all the setups in terms of, oh, you know, you have some work tonight where you're going to fight this person at this point and the cameras are going to be there. Everything has a spin to it.
And there's a team up.
Yes.
People love a team up.
Exactly.
Hashtagging it.
Yeah, you're talking about Starlight. What I found interesting with her character is that, you know, she is this sort of Midwest girl who's sort of that old Hollywood story of, you know, kind of coming out to try and, you know, make it big, and has this sort of ideology and, you know, a little bit of innocence, and goes through this story. Of all the superheroes, she's the one that we know as her name as well. Like, like we don't know who Homelander doesn't have a name.
We hear John.
Yeah,
Is
John.
it
At
John?
one point, they
Yeah.
do say, I gave it a rewatch the past 3 days. to
Okay, I didn't
refresh.
catch that.
I would have on a like right now, if I hadn't rewatched it, I probably would have been like, yeah, they didn't say his name ever. But once when he goes to see that doctor,
the old doctor.
he calls him John.
Okay,
Yeah.
see, I totally missed that.
I forget the actor's name.
He's
really,
a
great
well-known
character
actor.
actor. Yeah,
Well-known
And
actor.
he says, "Hey, John." He goes, "How long's it been, John?" And Homelander replies, "Long enough that nobody calls me John anymore."
And that-
Being their superheroes are their identity.
Exactly, but yet, you know, we hear Annie as much as we hear Starlight
Yep.
in the whole thing. And so she's very much carries that with her. You know, she's still not fully immersed in this world. She's still not fully...
She's also the only one. Sorry, Ben.
John Doman.
John Doman, okay.
She's the only soup, as their slang is in the show, that we see out of costume. Even like when the Deep is going shopping at at the supermarket, he's wearing a hoodie, but it's over top of his costume. Yeah. Homelander never comes out of his costume. Queen Maeve never comes out of her costume. They're all always in costume, except Annie comes out of costume and you see her in street clothes.
Was Queen Maeve not in costume when she stopped by the ex's place?
Nope, she was still in costume.
She was still in costume?
Yep.
I thought she was wearing something else.
Nope, she was always, they're always in costume.
Yeah, so it speaks to that whole idea that they're always on and they've become the image that they've been branded by this corporation.
Mm-hmm. And that's an interesting comment too. I think you already said too on like celebrity culture, that they're very much, these are like metaphors for celebrities in our society.
Oh, absolutely. Like, and you know, their nuances, they use their power, their status in order to influence, you know, in order to get their own personal agendas made, or in order to get their own personal itches scratched.
It just popped in my head too. Another one that does come out of costume. A-Train.
A-Train does.
When his leg is broken and he can no longer be A-Train, he's at a store, he's still in his colors. His color scheme still retains, but he's just in a hoodie and shorts and whatever. But then as soon as his leg is healed and he's got it braced up and he's getting back he's back in costume. Like even when he's practicing and training, he's not like in a training suit. He's back in A-Train. So I thought that was kind of cool, like always maintaining, and like other than John, you never hear any of their real names.
No, you certainly don't. Other than Annie, of course, because Annie's our access point of, you know, she's that new person to the story that you know, as an audience we carry through to see the peek behind what's going on, the workings in of all the things that are going on at Voight.
I really love too the idea that, like, you know, because in the real world, like, who doesn't have accidents or things happen, but that these superheroes, when they're saving people, they're actually like accidentally crippling them. And so the company comes to people with non-disclosure agreements and payoffs and stuff to keep it quiet. And I really loved the scene when Carl Urban, who's amazing in this show. He's one of the best parts.
So good.
And he takes, I've lost the name of the actor that plays Huey.
Quaid.
Yeah.
Jake Quaid.
Yeah, and he takes him to that support group for people that have been saved by superheroes and crippled. I'm like, this is a really wacky, effed up idea, but I really love it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. There's no emotional or connection with the supes versus, you know, the ordinary people. There's no empathy. There's no concern. It's just all I care about is the image of what I do, not the after effect. So
another thing I found interesting about that whole sequence with the survivors group or the support group, it's much like many groups of its type in our world. It's taking place in a church,
right.
Okay, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, but I saw throughout the series, especially on the second watch, the idea that I sort of found like the supes are like gods. They're like a religion, and the people regarding them, like people don't want to see they're doing bad. Or like maybe, you know, not to offend religious people, but sometimes they would focus on, you know, God has a plan, so even the bad things that happen are part of the plan, and they're all part of the greater good. And I think Butcher, Carl Urban's character, at one point like comments about, oh yeah, all the horrible things that the supes do, and he has a flip out in that group scene there about, oh, you're all just ignoring it, pretending it's all great because you're all just in love with them and thinking whatever. And I thought that's kind of, you know, there was something there you know, I sort of found a correlation there. I don't know if I'm really getting that point across.
Yeah, and I don't. To me, it didn't really come across as religious, as it was more of like unconsciousness of sort of, sometimes we get branded and just, you know, have brand loyalty with things without even really being conscious of what, you know, is
what the reality is. Yeah,
what that maybe that corporation stands for, or how we're being advertised to. To me, it was more of a media sort of thing. You guys are just, you know, almost like sheep just following along because this is what you're told to do. You know, like wake up and realize what's really going on here.
Yeah, I'm one of the first to try to make that kind of connection like you did, and I didn't really see that. I did see the people not wanting to admit.
Maybe it's more like athletes, like they're heroes. You know?
Yeah,
people don't want to see.
Everybody else sees it, so I feel that pressure to kind of just go along. And I thought that Carl Urban's point in that rant was exactly it. It's, where's your anger?
Yeah.
Where's your rage?
Where's your rage?
You should be furious with these people for what they've done to you. Like, they're supposed to be saviors. They're supposed to be helping, and they've just destroyed all of you. One of the best moments in that show for me was that his freak out. I thought it was going to be like awkward and terrible, but it so poignant and,
Yeah.
and perfect time.
That would be one of my top 5 scenes in the season.
Mm-hmm.
And as a side note, he drops a lot of C-bombs.
Yeah.
They did not hold back on that word at all.
Well, I think that's because he's.
I think culturally appropriate for where he's supposed to be from.
his character is Australian, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is, that is.
Is he though? Did they ever say he's Australian? And I only say that because I listened to a podcast called The Weekly Planet from Australia that talks about pop culture and mainly a lot of comic book stuff like that. And they talked about the show a couple weeks ago, and they were kind of laughing because I guess Carl Urban's accent was not spot on.
No,
and so they
was-
were sort of goofing on where exactly is he from?
Yeah.
I think it's like their version of Australia.
Yeah,
kind of thing,
his New Zealand take on Australian
yeah,
or something
exactly.
like that. But I loved it. I thought Carl Urban was so fantastic in this show.
Yeah, we were watching it, and my wife looked at me and she goes, "Boy, that Huey, he looks like a Quaid. Like he just reminds me of a Quaid." I'm like, "Well, it's Jake Quaid. Like it's Dennis Quaid's kid.
That's Dennis Quaid's kid.
Yeah.
Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan's kid."
Totally did not know
Yeah,
that.
Dennis
Wow.
Quaid, Jake Quaid is
I
Dennis
see
Quaid
it now.
and,
Now
and Meg Ryan's kid.
Okay, crazy.
Yeah.
And now oh wow, I just saw that now.
He
Wow.
was. I thought he was spectacular. He was so believable in his role and his evolution.
The opening scene, like the opening bit where his girlfriend
Yeah,
gets
the first
blown
5
up by
minutes.
A-Train.
Wow,
That was insane.
that set the tone for me for this series was just the absolute bonkers way in which she died and he was left standing there.
Yeah, yeah, I know because you're watching this scene and they're having that sort of romantic kind of kibitzing, having fun, setting up the future kind of thing, and you really do get a sense that she's probably going to be an important part of this story. Not quite in the way they set it up, of course. And all of a sudden, there's that moment where she just all of a sudden is gone, and I'm watching this going, okay, did somebody like snatch her? Like, what's going on?
That was my thought exactly. I'm like,
and
well,
then
where'd she go?
Exactly. And then they cut to him, and there's all of a sudden blood starts showing up on his face, and I went, no.
And then
they
he's
cut
holding her hands.
Yeah.
And you see A-Train standing basically drenched in blood.
Yeah.
and there's bones, and he's like, oh, sorry, I gotta go.
Yeah.
And he takes off, and I'm like, what am I watching?
Yeah, no. And then
And if I'm not mistaken, did they not cut to the title at that point?
Yeah, I
Was
think
that-
pretty
so,
much,
yeah.
pretty much, yeah.
And I went,
yeah.
oh,
Just
okay,
this is the show we're watching.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Slow mo
Yeah.
of globs of
Yeah.
blood and meat just hanging in the air, and then
Yeah.
and then later on when they saw him in the bar, and he was like, "You think that was messed up? I swallowed her tooth."
Yeah, I know.
Oh God. Yeah,
Jeez.
like this show held nothing back, and I really appreciate that because they really showed how awful
Yeah.
their reality is.
Yeah, really try to root it in. This is going to be a dirty
Yeah.
superhero thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
the gritty and very, you're going to
Yeah.
get, dirt under your fingernails. And I thought it was a great, I don't know if that's the opening of the comic or whatever, but I thought that was a fantastic way to really go to inform the audience. This is the show you're watching.
Yeah, this
like
is-
you very easily could have let us down about 15 or 20 minutes of sort of keeping a foot more in that Marvel universe and
Yeah.
then flipped it. But I kind of like that right out of the gate. It was a gut punch going, no, this is the show you're watching.
Well, and the fact that it's not going to be sanitary, the fact that there's going to be dirt under the nails when you're watching this. There's going to be things that you're going to be uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
You're going to be things that we're going to do that you may not have seen in other.
You're going to want to take a
things.
shower after.
Yeah,
after some of
I
these
don't know. I
episodes.
don't really think it was
Yeah.
like an intentional poke at the Marvel or anything, but just sort of like I said, and I sort of look at it as like the flip side of the
Yeah.
MCU coin. You rarely see blood in the Marvel movies. Like you might see a little bit trickling out of the corner of Captain America's mouth after a big scrap or something like that. But like this was like the complete opposite. This was like, you're drenched.
Yeah, no, and I see it as a little bit of ownership too, because they're obviously taking a run at at DC's and the Justice League with elements of how Marvel is situated in sort of our society. But that shot there, to me, really had them grab ownership, going, "This is our superhero story."
Yeah.
Even though we're having basis and all kinds of other things that we're going to be providing commentary on, but this is going to be our world and how we're going to deal with this.
Yeah, I feel they really set the tone for themselves,
Yeah.
saying you've never seen.
Yeah.
Not even in Deadpool have you seen
Yeah.
a superhero
Yeah.
tale like
Because
this.
Deadpool's very graphic, but in a very jokey,
Yeah.
comedic way,
Yeah.
where this is like a very not. No, this is like, You'll snicker every now and again, but realistically, the core of this is very like, this is the dark, really nasty, a take on what it could be. Not unlike Watchmen. I found it was closer to Watchmen than
I would agree with
the
that.
current MCUs.
I think it went several steps past Watchmen.
It
but
did,
yes, yes.
absolutely. But I think it's sort of like, it does have sort of it's like a second cousin to Watchmen.
Yeah, Sin City kind of an
Yep.
idea almost.
I really loved Homelander. And I did it because, one of my favorite characters is Superman, just for all kinds of reasons I've probably talked about before. But I always I'm interested in a different take on Superman, and I love this, that basically you sort of saw him go, like, it wasn't the beginning of the arc. We sort of came in the middle of his arc, but through the show, through the events of this first season, he's more powerful than all the rest of them.
Yeah.
And he essentially is a god, much like Superman is in the comics and in other things. And you sort of watch him in here really becoming disconnected. Like, there's a few things that sort of kept him somewhat anchored to humanity. And Elizabeth Shue, who's fantastic, also I don't think we've mentioned her yet, was really great in this show. And he slowly either loses the things or lets go of them. And really, I think we'll probably see, because there's already a season 2 in pre-production, that I hope we're going to continue to see this whole thing of where he's really coming to the point of where, why does he even care about people? Like, he's putting on his brand and his outward show. No, you guys are the heroes, and the salute and the whole bit. But when we see behind his eyes, he's really like starting to get to, why do I even care about these people? What does it matter to me?
And to me, I get the feeling that he sees himself as his arc is he's growing into this sense of that he's the smartest guy in the room, and that actually he knows better than the company. I know better than Elizabeth Shue's character. I know better, and actually, if you just do it my way, we'll be in a much better place. And that's where I see him going from being less of a company man to all of a sudden now he's going out and manipulating things for the benefit of himself and seeing how he can work the machine. What I like about his character, and I don't think it's easy, to pull off, because his brand is that of all American apple pie, well rooted in who Superman is. But he's the one who's keeping the superheroes in check, and just those little moments where his eyes are red. And as an audience member, I found myself watching, going, "Shit, this is a guy who could absolutely annihilate anything he ever wants to, and he's going a little bit off his rocker here. Like, who knows where he can go and what he can do." And I found that to be absolutely menacing. I found his character to be that menacing type. And so I really like how the actor sort of approached it, because he's sort of walking that fine line where it could be very hammy, over the top, almost like classic supervillain-esque, but it's a little bit more restraint and kind of somebody who's trying to handle, as a character, trying to handle the brand. By the same token, you sense that there's more under the surface that is absolutely menacing.
I love the scenes that would take place like in their meeting room with the V table, the Sevens chamber or whatever, where you'd see like they're behind closed doors now, and like I think you're saying there, like there was a few scenes with different characters where he's saying nice things, but his tone is really menacing, and he'll give them a subtle pat on the
back, that's real subtle,
and then put his hand on their throat,
the massage on the shoulders of the deep, like
exactly. Like,
and it's like,
and they're all, and when they're around him, you see the other characters play that too, of that they're like, they'll all of a sudden, in the moment, they'll start to disagree, but then all of a sudden, as soon as he's like looking back at them, they're all like choosing their words carefully and being afraid, because they're like, at any second he could just and would burn me down to nothing, because you see like his mask slip, and like he has zero empathy. And I guess we find out later on that he was raised in a lab and never had someone to hug him, and so he does not have really humanity in him.
He's got that like little boy complex still. Like,
well, and how it even just relates to again, what's the name of Elizabeth Shue's character? What's her name?
Of who?
Elizabeth Shue. That character's name again.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. Stillwell. Madden Stillwell?
Madeline
Stillwell.
Yeah.
But their connection is kind of creepy. Like, on the one hand, it's very maternal, but then there's still this sort of sexualized
sexual thing too.
element to it, and like he's sort of that, or she's that sort of calming influence on him. He's like, that's the only voice of reason that he listens to for the most part.
It was very creepy. Sorry to cut you off there.
Yeah.
In the scene where to try to control him, she uses sex to try to control him.
Yeah.
And when they had sex in her office, and while they are, she's saying, "Oh, who's my good little boy?" and stuff like that. And he, throughout the series, has this jealousy of her baby, her actual baby. Like it's like almost a sibling rivalry. But it's very weird.
And it's all in the undercurrents of what's going on in the story. Like,
I think the writers and like the whole crew did such an amazing job of timing out his, like, you just see it ever so slowly. They just keep slowly pulling down the mask.
It's
or
very
whatever.
well paced.
It's for his character. It's perfect because you don't really get, and then all of a sudden you're like, right at the end, you're like, oh, and then all of a sudden, whoop,
Yeah.
it jumps up again at the end. It's like, well, your whole, like, I thought I had a handle on your character.
yeah.
Man, you are way different than I thought.
Yep.
Like, you just, beautifully written.
Which is a nice setup for season 2, wherever that may go.
Yeah, it was, who knows now, right? Like, it's like, okay, we've introduced this. Wow. Where?
Well, let's go ahead and say what they sort of introduced there, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
Carl Urban's arc throughout the series, his is we slowly find out that prior to the events of the show, 8 years earlier, his wife worked at Vought, and in the early days, and then we find out from Carl Urban's perspective that she was raped by Homelander, and she became pregnant. And what we find out in the very last scene there, that Homelander just found out as well, everybody just sort of finds out, is that, like, while earlier we were told she died in childbirth and the child had died as well,
Yeah,
actually
crawled
she
out.
didn't. They both lived, and she had I guess an okay delivery because she's still alive and fine, and the boy is now 8 years old, and he has the powers of Homelander as well, and that's a reveal for Carl Urban at the end too. So who knows what's going to go on in season 2? But I thought that was pretty. Like, I found it really interesting that they kept just sort of parceling out a little bit of Carl Urban's story. So in the beginning, I was really, okay, this is the story. And even though the show had, challenged our expectations a few times along the way, I didn't really buy in. I was like, no, I took it at its word until it flipped on us. And then I was like, oh, she's still alive. Oh.
And what does that mean for his vengeance?
Exactly. Right? Like his...
Because at the beginning, you're just, he's hell-bent for some reason, and then it reveals why that you just explained. And now at the end, you're like, well, has this all been for naught for him? Like, where does it place him now?
Does it get rid of his anger, or does it just turn its target?
His character, everything about him, about Carl Urban, is going to be completely different in season 2.
Has to be.
Like, she's not dead. She just went away. And I've
for what reason? Why?
Okay,
we don't know.
And I've seen in some online forums. Sorry, Ben. Some people have even posited the idea that it wasn't rape. That she she cheated on him and got pregnant and then ran away in shame or whatever.
Because all we see is her going into the hotel room
and
then
coming
her out
somewhat
disheveled, right?
But not beat up or anything, and they said it was a 3-hour time span, so that wasn't just like a quick and he slapped her around and she ran away. Yeah. And so it's like everything, the whole thing's going to be flipped for Carl Urban.
But the whole thing with Carl Urban, he said the whole time she wasn't dead.
He did. He always...
Because they tried to have a headstone for her, his sister or sister-in-law.
Yeah, that's right.
And he tried to put a headstone, and he went and destroyed it. So he said the whole time she's not dead. She just left.
He did.
Or was taken.
And I always just sort of read that as like the husband that's just in denial. He just could not accept that she was gone, and he was just going to keep punishing them because that was his reason for not moving on.
Yeah. And it could be either or, and that's why, like, how trustworthy is his narrative of himself and what he's motivated by?
Well, we definitely know his narrative is not trustworthy. I mean, all the other characters have proven to us that his narrative is not trustworthy.
But even to himself, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder if maybe for him it was like his belief internally was that she had run away because she was afraid of Homelander and knew that, Carl Urban, like her husband couldn't protect her physically. If Homelander decided to come back and do it again, her husband couldn't protect her and he would just get killed by it. So did she run away so maybe in his mind, she's run away to save me, to protect me. And that's why he wants to do in Homelander, because then that would be okay for his wife to come home to him. But now everything's flipped for him.
Well, and I mean, I wouldn't actually wind up being surprised if his narrative didn't really change at all next season. If he's still angry at Homelander, because Homelander's still, like, he's lost 8 years of his life. Now she's got this kid, so it's just driving a wedge in between them. So that's still Homelander's fault.
I think there'll still be some new interesting bones for Carl Urban to chew on as an actor here. Because wow,
And even just how they shot that whole last scene was really kind of interesting because it uses colors like this very 50s nuclear family kind of.
The boy's sweater is in the same color motif as Homelander's costume.
Yeah. And so it feels like this very family coming home oriented kind of thing. You know, even there's a sprinkler or whatever is taking place going on. Like, it feels very much, that sort of all kind of a picket fence kind of imagery. However, it's all under very kind of despicable circumstances.
Yeah. I'm going to say another thing just popped in my brain too. A way they kept along the way, like I said a few minutes ago, that opening scene with A-Train running through Hugh's girlfriend really set the tone of going, this is the show you're watching. And every once in a while along the way, they would do things that you'd go to remind you what show you're watching. And one I thought was when the Deep tries to free the dolphin. And they're playing it like sort of comedy, and it's you almost had a moment there that would be out of a Marvel movie where he's like he's talking to the dolphin and having an argument with it in comedy, and then all of a sudden he slams on the brakes and the dolphin flies through the windshield, and you're like, oh, and then it gets run over by a semi, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, like, I struggled watching that scene. Like, I really did. I was like, what the hell? Like, come on. And I realize it's just so cynical. It basically is saying to us, like, doesn't matter what you believe in. If you believe in, the traditional versions of superheroes, if you believe in religion, if you believe in environmentalism, we're going to have a take on it that we're going to do nasty.
You're not going to like.
You're not going to like. You're going to do nasty things to what you believe.
Exactly. And I sort of felt like that moment was almost like them giving the audience a sort of what I'd call a Marvel moment of where we're serious, but we've always got a little bit of levity. They're going, here, when you're traditionally watching these movies in our current time frame with Marvel being so big, this is what you're used to. And it sort of made you comfortable for a few seconds there going, hey, this feels like a Marvel thing again. And then really drove the point home again but it's not.
But how comfortable, like, because even their relationship, you're like, what is their relationship? Like,
I know, it was like weird.
Like a wife chewing out a husband.
Well, one of the last things he says before he slams on the brakes is, all right, fine, I'll touch it.
Yeah. If that'll shut you up.
Yeah, if that'll shut you up. He's like, wait, what?
It's like,
and I thought it was funny though because I was almost taking it as, well, this will be their version of the comedic Marvel moment, but then it's like crash.
I think another thing that they do with that scene though, that scene and a few others is
the lobster scene was also
yeah. If these superheroes are left on their own,
they can't take care of themselves.
They are going to do they're going to screw everything up.
Yeah.
They're really just they're pretty much morons.
Yeah.
And it kind of, I think it kind of tries to show that push Vought as being not that bad of a guy. Like it really kind of makes you look at it like that. Like with him and the dolphin. Okay, he killed the dolphin when Translucent, which I love the name Translucent. It's like that's not see-through though. Like
I know, and I loved it when Carl Urban calls him out on it.
So good.
But it means semi-transparent, and then cusses him out with a few choice insults and the C-bomb again.
Yeah. But you leave him on his own, and he's gonna go be a peeping Tom. Like
how creepy was that?
Yeah, you leave the Deep on his own, and he's gonna go and accidentally kill things, and basically all of these people, if you leave them on their own.
The Deep needs a babysitter.
Yeah, the Deep needs a script.
Yeah.
Like everybody, all the A-Train needs a script.
Yeah.
You don't let A-Train go off the script because he's an idiot.
A-Train with the cancer kid was like, oh man. It was like, God. Yeah. This is why he's got to be scripted.
Yeah. No, and that's it. It shows that it's trying to show that Vought is really is there for the better good. Like Big Brother is there to help you and to maintain order when it's really
it's sort of a weird thing of like
brand at least anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like they are sort of controlling these people somewhat, but really for their own corporate greed. But maybe
also
these
for
people
their own
need
good too, and the public's
these people, and it would be sort of be like if in our world, if there were really superpowered beings, they would need some kind of a check in place or something to maintain them. You couldn't just let people go off and hope they're all great.
Yeah, no, and here at Vought, they have a team of marketers and branding specialists who are in charge of these people for that exact reason.
Did you catch, and I don't remember if I caught it the first time through or if I just caught it the second time, at the aforementioned the support group, the guy that speaks up and tells the story about how he was with a superpowered being and she had ice powers and she snapped his dick off?
Yeah.
He's one of the marketing guys from Vought.
That's right.
Did you catch that? Yeah,
He's one of the writers.
He's one of the writers that sat there pitching Starlight her story, and he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh,
Yeah,
it's
he's one of
this and
the
it's
two of
that."
them.
Yeah, and
I
he's-
saw. Yeah, I remember.
So
that.
I'm like, "Oh, okay." So he's like, "Oh yeah, no," and because he says like, nobody usually likes the writers, and which
That's right.
I personally found a funny line as a hobbyist writer. I thought, "Oh yeah, that's hilarious." I took that as a bit of a funny shot, but yeah, that's how he met her at work because Vought deals with the super beings, and he was one of the people.
I did not catch that. That's really interesting.
A lot of
Actually,
cool
really-
little
yeah.
things they do in there,
Yeah.
and I like that they have the restraint to not show it in their face. And like another show would have looked at that character
Yeah.
and then done a flashback to that scene to
a
remind
hard,
the audience,
or a hard cut to him at
exactly to
Vaughn.
show us. But they don't have to. This shows a lot.
yeah,
very
gives its audience a little more credit, right?
Yeah.
And I would say the same with like Billy Zane's first cameo because when
Oh,
it shows
so good.
right, shows a video of A Train's girlfriend who I can't remember.
Claw.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Her video, and all of a sudden. Is that Billy Zane? Billy Zane's in this movie, right?
know.
And then they have him. Then they have the throwback of him being part of like some sort of celebrities row at some sort of Comic Con
with Tara Reid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like Terry.
Yeah, like Skid Row celebrities who are kind of a little bit down and out here, but yeah, no, and I loved Pop Claw's movie. Like and it's the weird things that like there would be in our world there would be people that would fetishize superheroes and whatever and put them in movies like this and stuff and sort of softcore action porn or something like that. And I love that part of the way they monetized the real superheroes was to make movies about them.
Yeah.
And they talked about the VCU at one point and I was
Yeah,
like,
that was great. I
yeah,
thought that
like
was-
this show doesn't miss a trick. I really well done on so many levels.
Yeah. I just want to say, I really appreciated Simon Pegg. His accent was so good
Yep.
that we originally thought that somebody was dubbing his lines because
Yeah.
it didn't quite
Oh, wow.
sound like him. And we were just kind of watching it going, is somebody dubbing? And then we're like, no, that's wow. He was great.
I'll throw you in a trivia note here. In the comics, Huey, his character, is Scottish, and in the original comics is drawn as Simon Pegg. And this project was in development as a feature film about 10 years ago that never got off the ground, and Simon Pegg was going to play the character of Huey.
And he just
He's
aged
out of the role, so instead
plays
the
the dad.
showrunners here played him in as the dad, just as a
that's
nod
great.
for that. But
That's
he's really good at it.
He was. I really enjoyed him. He was very. Everybody was so good. I mean, I love Elizabeth Shue. I'm
do
glad
too.
to see
She's
her.
so
in again.
awesome, and I always love seeing her pop up and stuff, and she was fantastic
Yeah,
here.
she was so good in it.
Like she really played well that like corporate, like she's controlling and she's a woman in a position of power and she's really she knows how to like control dudes around her, but then also the fear of Homelander. Like she knows
Yeah.
how to control him, but she always
There's
she's
a fine line.
She sees he's right on that edge that if she plays one card wrong, she could, and she does in the end up getting the wrong end of that, which was another that scene in the house where like so many layers there, like. Carl Urban's got the bomb vest on Elizabeth Shue, like just showing how dark he will go, how far vengeance has
Yeah.
taken him, that he's going to blow up this person and utterly commit murder just to try to get at Homelander. But then Homelander brings the baby right into the room, and Elizabeth Shue at that point just keeps getting angry. First she's begging, and then she gets angry at him, saying, "Just take the baby away, get him out of here, get him out of here." And Homelander doesn't give a shit.
Nope.
And then when Homelander burns her eyes out and burns her head out, I was like, "Holy shit!" This is and like the camera doesn't flinch away from it. You're like, "No, you're watching this." Like that was so dark, and I was like, "Wow, that's like wow." I love that.
Yeah, the one person he had some sort of connection to,
Yeah.
and he is not afraid.
And again,
to
yeah, and now he's like almost like it's like he's metaphorically burning his bridges to humanity. That I'm like sort of afraid of what we're gonna see in season 2. I also loved, and that sort of jumped in my head too, the idea that what he was getting A-Train to do was to take that Compound V around the world to create supervillains. That he figured out, well, if I create super people for me to fight, they're going to need me more. So he's sort of increasing his demand, which I thought was really awesome. And like first, but and like creating super terrorists.
Yeah.
So that was crazy.
Yeah, that was like that whole series was just bonkers, beginning to end, just bonkers.
I'm glad too that it was 8 episodes. Like Netflix seems to always stretch their shows to 10.
Yeah, and sometimes it feels like there's filler.
All of the Marvel shows they did, even like some of them I really loved, some of them I turned off, but they all had filler episodes where you kind of and this didn't. And I kind of like that about Amazon, that they'll like, no, this only needs to be 8.
I am really glad though that they are starting to learn from the British models of television, and instead of trying to do 22 episodes, they're like even 13. You know, it's like 13. It's like, good.
It's a good balance between a feature film where we have to squeeze everything into 2 hours and change, and a 22 episode season where we've got tons of filler and you sort of lose the threads of stuff at time. But yeah, no, I like an 8 to 10 episode season, and I'm glad that they were here like going, no, this is just 8 episodes. This is all we need to tell the tale.
Yeah, and they did a very good job of balancing the different storylines. Like it's not like there's only like 1 or 2 stories that we're following. You know, it does a very good job of balancing everybody out and bringing them to a natural season endpoint.
They all drew to a good, like, they sort of brought their arcs into a landing point, but also they were springboards to where, okay, where are they going next?
Yeah, which for me, you know, like the character of Black Noir was like, okay, I'm sure he's probably going to...
That was very well seeded for, here, we're not going to tell you very much at all. This is a season 2 thing.
I absolutely love the character of Black Noir, despite the fact that he did very little. But
said nothing.
Just sat down one time, stared a guy off the piano, and then
took over
and played the piano.
I'm like, that was fantastic.
This was amazing. Like, what a great moment to, you know...
And what's his background?
Exactly. We don't know. There's nothing. Like, we know nothing about this guy, but he can play the piano, and he doesn't like to share.
And I know what it is.
Exactly.
I read what he is in the comics, but I don't necessarily think they're going that way in the show, and I think they were very great to they didn't even, like, I said it before, that the showrunners here have a really... I appreciate the restraint they show, that there could be easily fan servicey moments, or they could throw in clues of things, but they really didn't feel like they had to, and they didn't really give any clues at all about Black Noir that I caught on to. He's just left as a total enigma, as something to explore in season 2.
I also love the character names, like, because you've got some that are great, like the Deep. Okay, that's a great name for an Aquaman-like character. Like, you don't have a lot that you can do with that. You go Riptide or something like that. But the Deep. Okay, that's good. Translucent,
funny.
Terrible, but funny. Like, really good. Black Noir.
That's great.
Great. Terrible, but great. Like, redundant. You know, like, just, but it works
but all
so
very suiting to
beautifully.
Homelander, which is exactly something that some corporate, like, you know, shill would come up with, like, this very patriotic, like, and very, like, it's the sort of thing like Captain America. That's basically the same thing. Yeah. We've lived with it for so long that we sort of accept it and dismiss it and just, well, no, that's his name. But if you were to look at it objectively, you go, yeah, that's a very goofy, on the nose sort of a thing. Yeah. And this was the same thing. Oh, I didn't even think on that. Yeah, I'm wearing Captain America t-shirt. I didn't even think that. But yeah, like, because Homelander is Superman with a little bit of Captain America stirred in, but you know, minus the empathy and humanity. Yeah, which is very terrifying.
And it plays into that real sense of, okay, the part of the storyline of the show, of course, is them trying to crack into the U.S. military and defenses. And
yeah, sure. Sorry, here to interrupt you. Are we going to do another round of scotch here?
Yeah, I'm just going to pop out.
Okay, Ben's going off mic to refresh us here.
Yeah, but to sort of set it up that, you know, this is the next iteration of what where Voight's going to take these guys is going to be, you know, where the big money is, and that's in the U.S. defense budget.
$40 billion. They're kicking
$40 billion. Yeah,
nice small appearance there by Giancarlo Esposito. Well, as the big boss at Vought, hey?
I think he must have a bigger role in season 2. Speaking of season 2, I would think he'll probably be sort of now
a great pull for them.
It was in season 1. He'll be like
he was literally just the one scene, and I think it was just here's a great actor for season 2.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think actually they're going to borrow a bit from the comics of what Black Noir is for season 2.
I suspect
I do think like his origins of who he is and the purpose of his character, I think will now all of a sudden become one of the main conflicts of
I guess we don't need to tiptoe around this. That in the comics, it ends up being revealed that Black Noir is a clone, is a clone
Thanks,
of Homelander. Thank you, Ben. Okay, let's take a pause here for a second. We're doing round 2 of scotch. This is awesome. This is we're breaking. We'll let Ben get back on headphones here. Here, maybe hold his glass for a second for him.
There we go.
Awesome. This is making for a great podcasting.
The struggle is real.
It is. Okay, so I'm loved that we're breaking new ground. The scotch on the podcast.
All right, cheers, boys.
Tell, what do we got here, Ben?
Prosit. Okay, so this is Obam. It's a 14-year-old Scotch. I don't know a ton about this one. It's brand new to me. I just bought it like a week or two ago, so I should have grabbed the bottle. I should have grabbed the bottle to read off it, but
that's all right.
it's a 14-year-old. Find it your. I don't know how far-reaching this pod is, but
I'm not even lying. Apparently, this is very big in the Philippines. Most of the interaction I get through not even making
You're
this
big
up.
in the Philippines.
Not even
You
making
need
this
to
up.
get some shout-outs then.
I do, and not even. I get a lot of mentions and interaction onto the Facebook page of Screen Chat that I don't really know what to do with from the Philippines, and
dude.
I will say good afternoon, Manila.
The messages can't even get properly translated because there's a lot of dialects and languages spoken in the Philippines. So where I work, a lot of the staff there, I have a lot of kids that are Filipino. So I've had to show them some of the messages and had to get a few of them to weigh in to translate some of the messages for me. And it's basically people like, one person was saying like, oh, they really love this show and it's inspired them to start their own podcast and stuff like that. But yeah, I get a lot of interactions from the Philippines.
You need to do a Philippines movie episode because we do have some great films that come through that play over at the Northgate that I've caught over the years.
We'll plan something. We'll go see some films in Tagalog. Or other dialects from the Philippines, but ideally, I think take the show on the road and go to the Philippines and do a live show.
That's right after you win the lottery and get paid to watch TV.
It's gonna happen. All right. So, anyways, gentlemen, cheers again. Round 2 of the Scotch. Cheers. And sorry, what was the name of this one more time, Ben?
Oban.
So, for one of my most frequent listeners, my brother Corey, the Scotch is Oban and the smoking light is off.
All right, we were talking about Black Noir.
I like that.
This is a little more
really
woody.
Good.
Yeah, it's a little more woody. Mm-hmm. Definitely a little bit more peaty.
Yeah,
but yeah, definitely.
I enjoy the peat.
Yeah, this is a nice balanced one. That's for sure.
Sorry, before we broke into our Scotch here, round 2. We were talking about Black Noir, and I don't know if you caught that, Ben. We were saying in the comics, Black Noir is revealed to be a clone of Homelander.
Oh.
So I don't know if they're going to play that out or not. I suspect they might, because it makes for a natural thing, but...
Well, I mean, somebody's got to stand up against Homelander. Right?
Exactly. So his whole premise is that he's to keep Homelander in check.
We don't have a foil at the moment. So.
Yeah.
No.
And if Homelander ever goes off script, he's supposed to be the one that basically can take him out.
So does Homelander know? I wonder.
I think so. I would think so. I think that's part of the...
And did you notice that Black Noir is the only one that doesn't screw up or have a problem?
That's right.
Of the 7. And at one point, Homelander even says, "Hey, Black Noir, not you. You're always doing good."
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting. Actually, that I did not know that. So that's
So I'm they've left it open. They don't have to go that way. If they come up with a different way, they could go. But at some point, the show will need a counter character for Homelander to stand up to him. So
I think it's there. I really do. I think as the season went on, he became less and less part of the company man and more of just self-indulgent, to the point of now where he may have just totally alienated himself from Vought. So,
but yet they need him because he's the most powerful one. He's the one that they've sold and that they're going to use to that they're in the military with now. And so how does Vought's not going to want to get lose control of their biggest piece?
But how are they going to keep him in check?
I don't know. I'm interested to see that.
So in comes Black Noir.
I'm interested to see how that character of Giancarlo Esposito in the second season uses the piece of Black Noir to keep control and how that's going to work out.
He's going to have to be a bigger presence now that Elizabeth Shue's dead. Right?
Yeah, I presume that's why they inserted him into that one scene, kind of like...
I'm pretty sure that's his introduction now.
We've teed up a really big actor for season 2 here, and that is... we see from Breaking Bad, can really play that friendly yet menacing, like very nuanced characters. I really love him watching him.
Great in Breaking Bad. Yeah.
Did anybody catch Jim Beaver's appearance as Bobby Singer?
I did not.
No way.
Jim Beaver was in, and he was there as Bobby Singer.
Okay, he's from Supernatural.
Yeah, he played Bobby Singer in Supernatural.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. Who is named after Bobby Singer, one of the creators of Supernatural, writers and creators of Supernatural.
Oh, okay.
That's so funny.
A lot of nuance and a couple layers deep there.
Yeah, it's really, really well done how deep they go on some of these things. So
where do you think some of these characters are going in season 2? Where do we leave them off? Okay, we leave Starlight has gone from being naive and like getting to her dreams, and then her arc was really about her seeing the world for what it really was, like finding out that her mom had actually condoned her being pumped full of drugs to trigger superheroes, that superheroes are shitty. Her first encounter with the Deep, realizing that they're not, that the Seven isn't this pinnacle thing that she thought was just fantastic.
Well, she has that one line that she says to her mom, like, no wonder I don't know who I am, because this dream has been your dream, and all those pieces. So I think she's going to go on that.
Everything's a lie. Going back
that journey of who am I and how do I fit in this world.
Going back to the Believe Expo, the Christian rock festival she goes to, and all of a sudden she's seeing it with different eyes and realizing a lot of it is not stuff that she personally agrees with. And was this really here all along? And she goes, yeah, maybe I just didn't see it before, but all those things. And she ends the series turning, she kills A-Train. Or no, he doesn't kill him. No, sorry. He dies of he has a heart attack while fighting her, and she's saving him. So I guess we're going to see what happens in season 2. Yeah. A-Train was a character that very much was not in control of his own destiny
for the purpose of being the strongest or the fastest, so he can remain on the scene.
To remain on the scene, but then like not having control. Like then he ended up killing his girlfriend because he was more afraid of Homelander than he was in love with his girlfriend. But then regretting that decision and blaming, like not taking responsibility, blaming other people for him, forcing him to do that. The Deep. Just really, again, another character that he's not... Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
No, I really felt like the Deep may be one of those characters that actually changes over and maybe changes for the better.
I simply think so because...
Finds a little humility in all this.
Well, that scene where that girl meets him at the grocery store and then they go back to his apartment and she's like fingering his gills.
Yeah.
I think that maybe made him, on top of his apology and then his banishment, maybe may have shaken him a bit. I feel like he could be a guy that
he's
maybe
a character
they've
sort of set up that has room for growth.
Yeah,
that he could change
and has potential to be greater than what he is.
Yeah, and I think also this show with like it seems to like setting expectations for the audience and then subverting them to set him up not just as a bad guy, but as a really shitty guy.
Yeah,
like he's not as he's not as menacing or terrifying as Homelander, but he's just a real piece of garbage. Yeah. So he's now
just
maybe,
a dude, bro.
If they can then
just one of the pieces of trash that wears a cape,
exactly. And if they can take that character and through season 2 and beyond, if they have more seasons, grow him to end up being a character we root for, much like Game of Thrones did with Jaime Lannister. Mm-hmm. A character that threw a child out of the window in the first episode and ended up being a guy we root for.
Mm-hmm. But I wonder, now, would that be taken on too much? Because he is a piece of trash, and there's a very Me Too kind of moment. And in this current climate, I'm not sure if there will be redemption for a character like that.
Maybe not.
There may not be redemption, but maybe he strives for it.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah.
Maybe that becomes his...
Yeah.
Because, to be honest here, like, I'm sure there's people that have been on the wrong side of the Me Too that probably in their hearts aren't bad people. They did dumb things because culture said they could at the time, and they were weak. And they can grow too. That people can grow. I know personally, like I won't get into details, but I know that things that I thought or would joke about when I was 20. Now at 45, I cringe at some of the things I used to make jokes about. That now,
thank God you didn't have a Twitter account.
Exactly. If there was if there was a Twitter then, that I would look back now and see some of the things I made jokes about, and not necessarily about any kinds of just crass jokes. That now I would be embarrassed if that was on film and somebody would be able to go, look at the thing you said, and I'd be like, holy crap. So if I can't think that myself has grown as a person, how could people like James Gunn who got on the wrong side of some stupid things he'd said on Twitter, and now people have forgiven him. So can we somewhat forgive? Can the Deep somewhat redeem himself and be like, hey, you know what?
And that's the question. And can that happen in a season? Can that happen that fast?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe not in a season, but if we go 2 or 3 seasons,
I don't know.
Who knows? I'm interested to see if that's where they're going to go. That maybe he at least tries. Maybe there's an interesting story to see in a person trying and failing to redeem themselves.
Yeah,
Ben.
No,
you had something there.
I fully believe that he may not redeem himself. Like he probably may not in a season become a good person.
It would be too fast, I would kind of say that in a season.
But if he can at least realize that he's been shitty, I mean, how many years did it take for any of us to realize that we were shitty at a time, right? Like,
society changes too.
I'm in the same boat as you, where I've.
The things I referenced a few minutes ago was jokes. I'm not going to say everybody made them, but they were things and joked about that were largely accepted. I don't want to say them on the air.
I won't even say that they were accepted by society. It's the people of our age at that time it was acceptable among the people of those age. Nowadays, no, we were idiots back then. We know that, and I would hope that I'm better than I was.
I would think for instance, right? I'll say with today's eyes, if you were to go back and watch Eddie Murphy Raw,
oh my god,
the comedy special, people that have never seen it, or Delirious, people that have never seen it, kids that are born post that era, that say like now 23, 24, to go back and watch that and go, once upon a time, we thought that was hilarious. They'd probably be like, holy shit, really?
Yeah, what the hell is this?
And but can the deep come to realize
if he can realize and then strive, he won't be redeemed, but maybe it puts him on the right path. And that's all I want to see. I want to see character adaptation. I want to see character change. If he's just going to be the same douchebag the whole time, that's just terrible. That's terrible writing, because nobody's like that.
I'll say not for the because of the actor or the writing and all, but really Huey, who was one of our main characters, is probably like the least interesting arc. Like he doesn't like.
Yeah,
he sort of had a thing of where he wanted to get revenge, and like Carl Urban played on that.
And he's discovering just how dark
played on that,
going,
and he sort of went dark, and now he's reeled it back. But he has sort of the least personal stakes in terms of growth.
Honestly, I feel he's the most relatable, though, because he's not the guy to come up with the crazy master plan. He's the guy who everybody thinks won't be able to do anything, and then he kills Translucent. Right?
Yeah,
like and then they want him to, get close to this girl, and it's like, okay, well, yeah.
I guess he's the one I'm least like. Not that I'm like get rid of him, but I'm like his story. I can't really sit here and go, yeah, I want to see what happens next with him. Maybe they'll come up with something really great, but I'm like, I want to see what happens next with Homelander. I want to see what happens next with Starlight and the Deep and these other and Black Noir. But Huey, I'm kind of like he's like a fifth or sixth distance for me.
I'm very different on that. I find that he's the guy that I can watch all of this happen through. He's the guy where I go, that's the guy I most relate to. That's the guy that, like, that's who I would be. I wouldn't be Billy Butcher. I couldn't be any of these other
I
guys.
take him as my entry point, and he's who we're seeing it through, but I don't really know that his personal story, his character story, has anything, he's, like I said, like the fifth or sixth down the row of, I really want to see what happens next. Billy Butcher's almost like my number one.
Well, Billy Butcher is the big question mark for season 2, because basically everything that we believe why he was doing what he was doing has the rug totally pulled out from it. And so now that leaves the question mark going, what is he doing, and for what purpose, and what does that mean? And even Homelander, like, where's that character going in season 2? Like, to me, I think he's going to be sort of a complete Cavalier Maverick kind of character, where he might be just him versus the world, and he could take on the world.
He can. Now, but for him, I guess, like, he's still operating in his mind. He thinks he's still a superhero.
Oh, certainly.
And so he's created villains, almost like he's creating things for himself to do, to take on, and challenges for himself, because in his mind, he's not just, he would never want the world to be saved, because then there's not a need for him anymore. So he needs to be needed and wanted.
Needed is definitely what his character certainly is.
He has a great meta line.
Family, though, the family is what I think is going to be driving him more than anything. The need to be part of a family, because he's never had that, and that's what we saw.
And he doesn't know
how.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be needed. He needs to be loved.
I love the scene with Elizabeth's shoe where he
needs to be
was
taken care of.
Yes,
Yeah.
where he was telling her what he'd done in creating the super terrorists, and he goes, and now we'll be able to save the world, sequel after sequel after sequel. And I'm like, wow, that's a really well written scene, but also very cool and meta, like referencing, that. And yeah, but no, you're right. He needs to be loved, but he needs to be loved. And he doesn't understand, he needs to be loved by a person as an individual, as a son, as a lover, but also he needs the world to worship him and love him because he gets off on that. And so he's creating that need by creating supervillains for himself to defeat so that the world will adore him.
But does he need to be part of the Vought fold for that?
No, I think
So I think there's going to be...
that's going to be the cool thing.
There's going to be a rub there, I think.
Yeah, that's going to be the cool thing of him sort of pulling away and being that he's bigger than all of it.
Exactly.
And them needing to bring him back into the fold and take him down a peg. But how do they do that, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of cool questions for season 2 that I'm like, wow, this can't get here fast enough.
Yeah.
Now, here's my question for you.
Okay.
Do they do another shocker opening of season 2, or do they do a softer opening? Like they opened this first season with the
That's
big,
true.
gory, bloody death. Do they do that? Do they do another shocker opener, or do
I
they
don't know.
do they do a long, drawn out kind of?
I don't know if they need to. Like, they've set the tone. I'm sure that tone will still be there with, very dirty and gory and whatever. But I don't know. What kind of a moment could they open with? Something like,
I don't know. Does he burn the wife to the ground? Do they?
I don't think so, because I think, like Homelander said in that scene, like he says to the boy, "We're a family."
Yeah.
So I think now that he's found her again, and I think that could play into what we were saying earlier, that Billy Butcher has always operated on the idea that Homelander raped his wife. Mm-hmm. If he didn't, and it was consensual, now after all this time, I could see Homelander being like, no, we're a family, and, you love me. We got together, and him sort of being delusional maybe, and kind of being like, no, you're going to be my wife, and we're going to,
and this is what we're going to do. We're going to be a nice, happy family here.
This is going to be a 1950s,
well,
happy.
It's certainly
just
shot
like
that
you
way.
said, yeah, exactly,
It's
like the way
shot
you
that way.
shot. So,
Yeah.
Or do they do a apocalyptic opening and then do a cut back to, this is the end result, and then they rewind
I could
back?
see maybe
I could
that.
see
Like
that.
they show us, maybe we see the first half of what is the very last scene of season 2,
Yeah.
and
maybe.
then
A
the entire
Memento
season.
kind of idea?
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of how did we get to this point, and then along the way keep doing things to change, our context for what happened there.
Yeah, that reminds me of Breaking Bad, where the teddy bear was floating in the pool.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, great pull.
No, it's like you said, lots of questions. I think they have so much to work with in this next one. It's
Yeah, they definitely some shows are bad for painting themselves into a corner, where this just seems to have done the opposite, where it's really brought its story to a landing point where I'm like, okay, I've seen this felt like a good ending to a season, but also just boom, spun off.
Yeah, I still think there's lots there to be unpacked and a lot of story yet to be told. I don't see this being anything beyond 3 to 5 years. Like I think there's probably for this series, there's probably a solid 3 years, maybe 5 years, but I can't see it
Not going on
after that. Like
infinitive.
because it is a very strong commentary about media and celebrity culture and superheroes and a whole bunch of other things. I can't see it. There's a lot that it can keep unpacking at the same degree that it would keep it from to keep the wheels going. Does anybody know how long the series of the comics went?
I think it's still ongoing.
Is it really?
Yeah, it went long. Like, it was a very long, ongoing, and it explored other things. To that point, I think an interesting thing that they did not grace at all in this season, that I think is a thing they've totally left open, is they were shipping Compound V all over the country, all over the United States, and pumping kids full of it, right? And at some point, they say there's like 200 superheroes. One of their corporate ads is, and 200 heroes in the Vought family, okay?
Yeah.
Just because they were pumping and created it all, that doesn't mean that all these heroes all work for Vought, right? So could we have a point of where some of these super beings have grouped together and found each other and are almost a rival group, or they don't have the backing of Vought, they don't have the crime analytics and all that, but they are just functioning as some sort of a superpowered group, and there's an alternate that maybe they've kind of kept under the radar, and now they come out?
Well, they kind of made it seem like Starlight wasn't necessarily with Vought
Before, no.
before. She just kind of got
Small
up.
time, yeah.
Just
so-
just a quick thing. The Boys, the comic book, ran from October 2006 to November 2012.
Okay.
72 issues.
okay.
72. Okay.
I
So
know it's been
that'd be
collected
a
as
good
graphic
read
novels,
to
as
find.
so I'm probably going to pick up some. Just like I'm interested now. to
Yeah,
kind of
me
see.
too. Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because apparently from what I understand, the graphic novel is actually even darker and even more explicit.
Yeah,
than-
that's
than
what I
the-
heard too.
than
The,
series.
the show
So
is reeled
it's-
back a little bit from
So
what
it's
the
kind of
comics
curious
are.
to see, just how where exactly they take that. What was kind of interesting in this is the sort of the setup of Vought being almost like they've licensed their superheroes to different cities, and so I get the sense that they have quite a few different superheroes throughout, but they might also license. Oh, you need somebody over here. Well, we can lend you this superhero for this amount of money,
Yeah.
and
300 million for Nubian Prince to go to Detroit.
exactly.
I was like, I love that. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is awesome. This is hilarious.
So I can sort of see them sort of having track of certain folks and certain people, and then just kind of at what point do they sort of, okay, now we're going to pull back the curtain and say, okay, come into the family. I can sort of see them having that. There certainly seems to be like a natural setting to all of a sudden say, okay, you know what? Here's some rebellious teenagers who don't want to be part of the Vought family, who are kind of doing their own thing. That could certainly be a storyline, certainly. But I get the sense that this is very, as in this world, the corporation is not taking anything by circumstance, that they probably are tracking all these different superheroes, and for the purpose of going, okay, where can we use them? Which ones would sort of be the ultimate that will sort of be the pinnacle 7 eventually or not, and it will create situations like the race to create excitement and to see, okay, will one of them be all of a sudden unthroned? And
now
those
the
type of
7
things.
are the marketable ones.
Yeah.
Does Vought have like a black ops division they keep off the books, knowing like at some point,
that would be kind of
just like we were
interesting.
talking
Yeah.
that Black Noir is there to keep Homelander in check, and maybe Black Noir is on the team because they want, they need, in order for Homelander to be kept in check, he needs to see the guy that's keeping him check, right? They
That's
need
right.
him to know about it. So, but is there also a secret division that Vought keeps off away, going, okay, if at some point these guys, particularly Homelander, goes off book, and if Black Noir's not enough, we need a team that will come in and take care of them to, like, if that, like, here, we do need a ultimate check to keep these guys under control. Maybe there's a thing there.
Here's our contingency team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like
somebody-
Winter Soldier that killed
Exactly.
team in Civil War, right?
Exactly, yeah. And like, who knows what's going on there? But are there other superheroes you can think of that we haven't seen a version of here? Is there a favorite one you've got you didn't see? Like,
Oh, good question.
Well, I mean, Flash has always been my favorite. So
Okay, well,
seeing
we-
the
we
play
have
on
a
A-Train-
Flash,
I know.
we have
Seeing
an
the play on A-Train
Aquaman.
was
Yeah.
interesting. The one thing I've noticed is they mostly seem to be DC characters.
That's true.
Like you don't really see.
With a
they were,
spin.
like I said, Homelander
Yeah.
is Superman with a bit of
Yeah.
Captain
Yeah.
America stirred
Queen
in.
Maeve is
Queen
Wonder
Maeve
Woman,
is Wonder
right?
Woman.
They are.
Flash.
I wonder how much of that is just
Aquaman.
these were the ones that naturally lended themselves
Yeah.
to it.
Well, I think it's just because it's like their play on Justice League, right?
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
Marvel
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
really have
Yeah.
a Justice League per se. They've got the Avengers
Avengers,
and
yeah.
that.
but it's
I mean,
sort of a little different.
yeah, it's very different. Marvel's always lended themselves more to mutants and things like that. So it's a little different than the Justice League, which has their. I mean, even you'd call it the 7. They have basically the big 7, right? Like
Yeah.
we won't ever see a Green Lantern, right? 'Cause-
Something that's very
Well,
different.
actually, that's kind of interesting. Like,
Although I will say, Pop Club was kind of Wolverine-y, but
there's a character that left the 7.
Lamplighter. And his reference. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering. Okay, so that's probably like a Green Lantern type character. I would think it's to some degree.
Well,
maybe
Had
based
some
on
kind
the
of firepower.
honestly, yeah, it seemed more Human Torchy.
Maybe
Lamplighter,
anything.
because
What was his story? I'm trying to
okay,
remember.
his
what,
story. Now we don't know. All we know is
Like, did he die
retired.
or did he retire?
he
They,
retired.
Did he-
they
retired.
said they said in the show he retired and went away. Now we don't know, but Lamplighter is the character that the CIA boss.
Esposito. Yeah.
No, not Esposito. That
The lady.
Butcher ends up going to at the end.
What's
The
her
top-
name? Esposito.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Ma-
she's been in a million things,
yeah, her name's not Madeline because that was
it's,
Stillwell.
I was just looking at it a second
Grace. The first name was Grace.
Yeah, Jennifer
Su-
Esposito.
Susan Rayner.
Yeah. Okay.
Jennifer Esposito was the character.
No, not her. Not Jennifer Esposito's character.
Okay, that's what I'm talking
The
about.
blonde lady, the older lady that at the end Butcher goes to the
who started the whole
Butcher and then
yeah,
walked away
yeah.
because something happened to her. And what they say happened to her in that scene when he goes and talks to her
Grace
is that
Mallory.
Grace Mallory.
Yes. Yeah.
Her grandchildren, her grandsons were burned to
burned-
death and killed
Yeah.
by a lamplighter.
Yeah, burned to the ground by lamplight.
So yeah, he took revenge on her family for
So
starting
he-
the boys, and so then
Yeah.
she shut down the boys.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that there's a question mark on why Lamplighters
Again,
done. Like,
another
why-
character that was set up but left out there as a thing that we can look at in the future.
Because to me, I get the impression that Homelander is sort of like the archetype character that sort of started all this, and the rest were manufactured. But if Homelander is if Lamplighter is all of a sudden retired, was he an older character? Like, what? How does he fit in this? Like, and I guess ultimately that's
Now,
one of
they
the things.
say
That,
he
one of my
retired.
questions was,
They say
how
he
does
retired.
fit
Now,
in
who
those?
knows? Maybe he booked it. Maybe he's a guy that all of a sudden realized, yeah, they've ordered me to burn children alive and doing things. And now, could he be a guy that all of a sudden went off the grid and
well, maybe
vanished?
Homelander killed him.
Or maybe Homelander killed him.
Homelander
Yeah, like
killed
that
him?
I could see. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean,
There's all kinds of
from
interesting
what
questions
I
there.
get, from what I understand, they Homelander. The take I get from the show is Homelander was the one that they spent like the time trying to create. I think that there was some other guys, like some other heroes, older heroes that were like kind of like not necessarily intentional lab experiments, but like maybe they were given this compound or whatever, or maybe they were older when they were given it. Maybe they didn't give them to babies to begin with.
Well, in the show, they say that Homelander's giving it to adults, and that's what creates the girl that's with them,
Yeah,
the
the girl-
new girl,
the healing girl.
Yeah, the
Kimiko.
terrorist, yeah.
And that's what. And same with like the terrorist, they give it to the guy that blows up the Navy SEALs. He says, "Oh, we give it to as adults." And Homelander has a line in there where he's talking and saying, "Yeah," and when he's telling Elizabeth Shue about his plan, he says, "Well, I gave it." He goes, "Yeah, and not all of them worked out. I can see why we don't give it to adults usually. Like, it's better to give it to babies."
Wow.
But in the comics, I think they say that Homelander is so much more powerful because he's been given a steady dose of Compound V his whole life, where the rest of them are dosed as kids to trigger their power and then cut off. And then A-Train keeps taking doses of it,
Juicing
trying to
up,
maintain. Now, I don't know if that's from the comics because it's a lot different. Like, characters are very different and situations and everything. It's more like they're two totally different things. So you can read the comics and not have spoilers for the show because they're very different. Because also in the comics, not all the heroes are a result of Compound V. Some of them are just natural superheroes, and the idea is that Vought started creating superheroes, realizing this was happening.
And part of that is in the show they say that like, well, why is it that heroes are only born in the United States? Mm-hmm. And it's because they try to claim that they're selected by God.
Yeah,
right? Like that's
totally different in the comics.
Yeah.
It's apparently very different. So I haven't read it, so we can't really speak on that. But yeah, lots of interesting characters. Or questions? What happened to Lamplighter?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't-
that's one of my questions.
And
yeah.
so like they did a great job of setting some stuff up like that and
Yeah.
being like, okay, so what's up next?
Yeah. I don't know.
What's your favorite thing, Ben? That you think? What's your most interesting thing for season 2? Or prediction or anything? Throw out a thing for season 2.
I think you wind up having.
Sorry to put you on the spot. I'll cut a
Yeah.
lot of the awkward pauses out here.
You can leave.
We'll all sound really smart, like we had this right on the tip of our tongue.
Great podcasting. Great podcasting.
Oh, you wouldn't
I don't
believe
know.
I'm a magician now for cutting stuff out.
I don't know. I have a feeling that we're going to wind up with like.
Like I'm really sorry.
We're
I
gonna
made
wind up with,
myself
like,
sound smart for 23 episodes or so. So hey,
I think we're going to wind up with like a Homelander teaming up with someone unexpected and for the right reasons, not for and I don't know why, but I get that feeling like it's either going to be Huey or Starlight, and it might be against like Butcher or something like that. Like there's going to be something, or maybe. Or it winds up being this generational story where the kid winds up having to kill the dad. Like the kid kills Homelander. Like I don't know. Like I feel like something like that is
or
going to
could
be.
Homelander at some point decide he has to kill his own son, knowing that someday he'll grow up?
See, but I don't think
be as
that
powerful.
doesn't seem shocking to me. That
Nope.
seems very in line with Homelander's character.
Yeah.
That feels like it's.
Now, I don't necessarily think they have to keep shocking us, because at some point, when writing becomes intentionally just attempting to shock the audience, at some point it just becomes very transparent.
I don't feel like they're going to do it just to shock us, but
No.
this show feels like it's the writers are clever enough
There'll be something more interesting than
that it's going to be.
That's a
just-
fairly
just
obvious thing.
They're going to pick something and it's just going to blow our minds. But that's I mean, you start doing what you're doing, and you just become M. Night Shyamalan, right?
Yeah.
Like you're trying to
just
write
for the sake of doing
shocking,
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas these guys, it's like everything they've done so far has not. It's not maybe the Ezekiel thing in the bar. The Ezekiel thing in the bar. It was like okay, yeah. It's seems par for the course. But other than that, they have mostly kept me guessing this whole show. So I just feel like
I think that's why I'm interested to like see maybe meet Lamplighter or find out what happened, because whatever we can think of, I think they might have something even more interesting they've thought of that's like, oh, okay, well, that's what's going on here.
That's how all this fits together, so to speak.
Yeah. I'm interested to see where they go with Homelander. That even though I sort of know the obvious ways they could go, they might have something like Ben said, maybe a team up that we could not even think of, that, and they'll have like a motivation for it that maybe doing the right things for the wrong reasons, but it'll all be sort of making us sort of question our take on it.
Yeah.
You got anything?
Well, just more questions than anything else for season 2 that we've already talked about. Like, really, like, where does Homelander go from now? Like, what does this mean for Billy Butcher? That for me, that's probably where I'm most invested in, is being like, okay, what is his character going to do next? Like, what does this mean? Obviously, there's probably going to be a scene with him and his wife, trying to unpack, and trying to make sense of it all. And we'll be along for that ride. Beyond that, I'm not too sure. Like, one question I still have from season 1 is what happened to his dog. like Huey at
That
one
was
point.
apparently a nod to the comics, because he does have a dog in the comics.
Because we see him in one of the flashbacks where he's kind of waking up, where he thinks he's with his wife and the dog is there.
Dog's there.
And there's a
Huey,
moment where
comments.
Huey, in the backseat of a car, goes, "You have a dog?" He's like, "No, I
Nope.
don't."
So
Or,
what
"No."
happened to his dog?
So I have now. So she left and she's alive. What happened to the dog?
Did
I don't
she
know.
take the dog? Did the dog?
I don't know. That's
Something
ran
else happened to it
away.
at some point?
I don't know. That's the thing. Whenever you introduce a dog to anything, I'm like, okay, I need to know what happens.
John
to a
Wick
dog.
has made me very hesitant of seeing dogs on film. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to see anything bad happen to a
No,
dog.
never.
I am
That's
looking forward to the explanation of how she got pregnant,
Yeah.
because they did say that the soups aren't supposed to be able to reproduce.
Yeah,
Well,
life
that's right.
finds a way, right? Jurassic Park.
Thank you, Dr. Malcolm.
There we go. Well done.
That's my Jeff Goldblum laughing impersonation. Probably terrible. I don't care.
Now, one thing we haven't talked about yet that I do want to put on the table is probably one of my favorite scenes of the entire series was the whole airplane sequence. That
Oh
had me
my God!
riveted.
Thank you.
That had me riveted, and I enjoyed it. And again, talk about cynicism. Like, that whole smiling. Don't worry, everybody. Everything's going to be okay as he slowly makes his way.
And taking Maeve. Let's
Yeah.
go, Maeve.
Come
We
on,
gotta
Maeve.
go.
It's time to go.
Just save these two so they can tell what happened. No, we gotta leave them.
Yeah. And so I just anything I want to throw out there that you guys want to unpack from that scene.
I love his basically trouncing every time Superman's ever saved the plane.
Yeah.
So go out there and pick it up. By what?
By what? I'll rip it in half.
Yeah. You can fly 1 million. You can fly back and forth. 260 times?
Yeah.
Like, think about it. This isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. No, the fact that he thought more instantly about how impossible it is to save these people than he did taking out that last terrorist, which destroyed the plane.
Yeah.
Like, you put no thought into your actions, but you are going to put a ton of thought into why you shouldn't do this.
I think it was also cool. Like, that scene was really one of the early ones, because it's very early in the show.
Yeah.
No, it's about halfway.
No, it's not. It's like the second episode.
Really?
I
Is
thought
it
the
second
same
episode?
I thought the same thing too. After I watched it through the first time and thinking back on it, I thought that was sort of a halfway point.
Yeah.
That's like in episode 2.
Really?
Because I was shocked when I watched it the second time through this week. I was like, wow, that came faster than I thought. And it's like the first time you really see that they show, okay, they set him up and we know he's their analog for Superman.
Yeah.
But then when you see just how, like, where Superman is always perfect and has perfect control of his powers, Homelander doesn't. Homelander's so overpowered that it's like, oops, he just lasered through people. You know, his heat vision just burns straight through people faster than he can even think on it, and he just cuts people in half and accidentally destroys the control panel. And then he's kind of like, oh, okay, well,
I guess we're done here.
we're done here. We gotta go because this don't look good. So
No, it was episode 4.
I swear to God, it's not. I swear, watching it this morning, it's way
I was
earlier
just
than that.
looking at it, and one of the scenes is him on the airplane with the red eyes.
If I was a betting man, I would say season 4.
That's what I thought too, and I
Yeah.
was surprised this morning when I saw how fast it came. Or not this morning, the other day, but
I was sure it was like halfway. Well, we're gonna have to solve.
We'll
this.
have to- well,
this
yeah.
one. There'll be a postscript added.
yeah. Well, I'll add a note here, and I'll have to pay up on some kind of a bet because I think if not 2, it's 3. It's earlier than 4. I'm almost positive because I was shocked it wasn't because I thought it was like a halfway turning point. But then when I watched it the second time, I'm like, this really happened quickly. It might be episode. Maybe I'd push as late as 3. But it happened sooner than I thought when I was watching it.
To me, it looks like it's episode 4 called "The Female of the Species." And while we're talking about it, did any of you look at the episode descriptions?
I did not.
Either on
No.
Prime or on IMDb.
No. I just remember the title of the last one, Now You Found Me, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah. So let's just say, and this is on Amazon Prime, I believe, like on their description of the episode. So episode 4, The Female of the Species, it says, on a very special episode of The Boys, an hour of guts, gutterballs, airplane hijackings, madness, ghosts, and one very intriguing female. Oh, and lots of heart, both in the sentimental sense and in the gory literal sense. Like, the episode descriptions that they released
Wacky.
are
Lots of joy.
Okay, so then
Gold.
that would be episode 4.
Yeah,
then
that was
I'm
episode 4.
Then the Scotch is affecting my perception of time.
They've taken lots of joy into writing
They
winks.
have really, like episode 5. The boys head to the Believe Expo to follow a promising lead on their ongoing war against the Supes. There might be a homicidal infant, but you'll have to see for yourself.
Laser Eyes Baby was hilarious. that was
That was
their idea of levity, and I thought that was pretty hilarious.
that one was
and then
great.
Butcher even putting him back in the little crib or
Good
whatever.
boy.
Good boy. Now behave yourself, or I'll come back and stomp you. And I was like, Jesus.
No,
I
this
swear, like he's probably not going to get an Emmy for this, but man, I loved Carl Urban in
Well,
this.
it feels like if there's a role for him to play, this is it. Like this, it feels like that one of those lightning in the bottles kind of thing that he just fits it so perfectly, and he's got so much charisma playing it that it's so much fun to watch. If not the reason to watch the show, he is definitely one of the top 3 reasons
Yeah.
to watch the show. Yeah,
Yeah, his
he
constant
was-
changing of his motivations, and he's fantastic.
delivery of his lines, just everything about him. It is so awesome. I remember before the show was launched that there's all kinds of YouTube videos beforehand. So I was a little bit curious about it, and I'm so glad I watched it.
Yeah, I did not watch a lot of things about this show. I think I watched one trailer, but I watched one trailer and I'm like, yep, I'm in.
Yeah,
I'm not watching
I saw
anything else.
I saw the trailer once about 6 weeks out. It popped up on one of my social medias, and I was like,
Yeah.
And then, so I was like, okay, I'll watch this. And I've sort of largely got out of binging. Like sometimes like I'll watch shows. Well, that's a lie because I'm pretty binge hard lately. But I was kind of like, I'm probably going to watch 1 or 2 episodes. I think the Marvel shows on Netflix kind of got me out of binging, where like the early Daredevil, I watched it through.
Right.
The last few things they put out, I watched them, 1 or 2 a week, and then sometimes fell off of them. And then this, I'm like, okay, well, I'll check out an episode. And then I watched it in, I think, a day. I watched all of it in one day, and I was like, yep, on a Saturday. So I'm like, wow. And when season 2 comes, I know I'll be, okay, it's coming out this weekend. I'll be blocking that Saturday off because I'll be like, don't even bother. Yeah. I'm not going to start it on Friday night. I've got that bad habit a couple times where I end up falling asleep watching episodes at 3 o'clock in the morning. So now I start binge shows like this on Saturday morning. I'm like, no,
I get up at 7 in the morning on Saturday.
I'm up because I'm up for work at 5:30, so 7 is sleeping in for me.
So it's like your
you-
Saturday cartoons. Or
It absolutely is my it's my grown-up Saturday cartoon that now when binge shows like this come on, I'm like, have some control. Don't start it on Friday night. Just do something else, whatever, get some sleep, and then Saturday you'll burn through this and let your eyes go square staring at it. So yeah. But when season 2 comes, I will block out a Saturday, and that's what I'll do.
Nice.
I can't get here fast enough for it. Like I said, I've heard it's already in pre-production. So
Good for Amazon having a hit like this. That's really interesting.
They've got a couple now. I mean,
Yeah,
let's be
Jack
honest.
Ryan and-
Jack Ryan.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, when the hell's that coming out?
soon they've started
Yeah.
putting out promos for it. And they said
It's-
they haven't said the date yet,
No,
but
they
they've
haven't,
started
and
showing
it's
footage for it.
annoying.
So I know, but yeah, that's another one that I will absolutely tune in. They've got something Carnival Row. Either
That's
just
coming out.
dropped,
Yeah,
or
that looks
just-
really interesting, actually.
And apparently, it's getting mixed reviews.
Oh,
so
it is,
I'm going
eh?
to check.
I've
I'm gonna
only
check
seen
it
the
out.
teaser for it, and I'm like, okay, that's enough. It reminds me kind of Carnival, like that
Yeah.
show that HBO did about
10, 15, 12 years ago.
maybe 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of really looks like kind of that sort of flavor. So I'm going to check that out too.
I'm interested for that one.
Good Omens. I watched Good Omens.
I watched Good
really
Omens
liked
too.
it.
I went through Good Omens in about 3 days,
Yeah,
3 or 4
yeah,
days.
3 or
It
4
wasn't
days. I haven't
100%.
seen it.
It wasn't like I had to watch each next one, but I went through it in less than a week. Yeah, I liked it. But I'm a Tennant fan. I'm a Michael Sheen fan.
David Tennant is just David Tennant, and,
Yeah.
and,
Right.
it's in all his glory, and it's great. Michael Sheen was wonderful.
He was.
He was wonderful in
Yeah.
that show. I really enjoyed him.
I think it went like 2 episodes long. It probably could have been trimmed back a little bit.
there was definitely a filler.
There was
in it, so,
times
like,
in there where I'm kind of like, okay, they're treading water right now, but
John Hamm was fantastic.
I love John
he was
Hamm.
he was just he was like SNL John Hamm, you know,
Yeah.
like just ham and bubbly right there, you know.
Yeah, yeah, just like his what do you call his what are the commercials he does for now? Skip the dishes. His
Oh,
Skip the
yeah,
dishes
yeah.
commercials. I'm like, yeah, I love John
so
Hamm.
funny.
Like,
Yeah.
so just taking the piss out of himself. But yeah,
So good. He was very enjoyable in that one. Yeah.
Marvelous Miss Maisel.
Maisel, yeah.
Yeah, that's one I've caught some of, and
Yeah,
definitely gonna go
I
back
went through
to.
season 1. I'm partway through season 2, and then I got distracted by other things. But I really do
Yep.
mean to go back and pick
That's
it
a
up
great
again.
show.
Yeah, Amazon is kind of like,
So they're gonna. I think Amazon's gonna do okay in these streaming wars.
I think they will.
I'm a little worried for
also
Netflix,
because
but-
Netflix is the guys that don't have any backup, right?
Yeah,
Netflix, all they have is the memberships, where everybody else, Apple, Amazon, whoever else, all have other revenue streams, and this is just sort of like their secondary thing. Where Netflix, this is all they do,
They're all in. Yeah.
and
I'm a little bit worried.
They
I'm
just started
kinda-
reporting losses,
Yeah.
and
And their market value went down significantly this last summer.
at some point, I thought, like, I always just presumed that Netflix's plan was to build themselves up and eventually sell to somebody. And now they sort of like went past that, where everybody realized we don't need to buy Netflix. We can just create our own, and their name value isn't really worth all that much, so we don't want it. So I'm assuming at some point
gonna be
Netflix
interesting,
is
yeah.
just going to auction off their original properties to somebody, and then just peace out.
Wow.
Which is too bad because they do have a lot of really decent stuff. I'm probably going to
Yeah.
be starting Dark Crystal in the next couple of days.
Oh, is that dropped?
Yeah,
It
dropped.
did,
Yeah.
and I'm
Ah.
sort of like, I'm here and there on
Okay.
it. I'm like,
It looks great.
it looks great, but I'm like, what? Like, if you really look at the original, what more does it have to say? I don't know. Maybe they'll shock me, but I'm kind of like hesitant about getting into it and not being disappointed by it.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll wait till Ben watches it and tells me good or bad.
I have to stop watching Veronica Mars because I'm currently,
I'm currently
watched, binging that one.
I've never ever watched it, but I'm sort of like, I kind of want to get into it.
I've
but-
never watched it. My wife watched it, and she's like, "You should really watch it," because I have to say I love. I just blanked on her name.
Oh, Kristen Bell.
Kristen Bell.
Right.
I love her.
Yeah.
The movie she did with Kelsey Grammer.
Mm-hmm.
Father's Day, I think it was.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
It's a Netflix original.
Right.
It was wonderful. It was so endearing. Kelsey Grammer was crazy. She was great. It was just really good. But I like Kristen Bell. I really enjoy her and all her stuff. And I've never seen Veronica Mars. And they just dropped a new Veronica Mars season
Wow.
like this year or so. I'm going back and we're watching it all from the beginning. And it's actually really funny because Tessa Thompson
Oh, really?
Really?
is in Veronica Mars.
No doubt.
No,
Yeah.
really? Wow.
Who was the other person? There was another one where we were like, Kristen Ritter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And Steve Guttenberg actually plays Kristen Ritter's
Steve
dad.
Gutenberg.
Yeah, like the
Oh,
the
funny.
people in this show from like back in 2004. It's like, oh wow, Valkyrie and Jessica Jones. How weird.
That's awesome. I kind of like that Amazon is going to be probably have some darker content.
Yeah.
Where we know that Disney is not. Everything on Disney Plus they've straight up said is going to be PG-13.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So even some of the interesting stuff, like you might like to see certain Marvel properties could
interesting.
be a little bit of a darker bent, but
Yeah.
they're not going to. They're all going to be PG-13.
Which I would like to just get all of Disney's content on one server? Like, do I really gotta pay two
I
different
won't be
streams?
surprised if in time they bundle it. But they're just keeping it separate because they feel very strongly that their Disney brand has to be protected as family friendly. But like, well, Warren, we've talked many, many times about Moon Knight.
Oh yeah.
And how much? So we're getting a Moon Knight show, but it's going to be PG-13. And just before you got here today, Ben and I were talking off air, and I said like I'm excited to get a Moon Knight.
Yeah.
But this is going to be like a watered
not
down.
not your Moon Knight.
Not my hashtag. Not my Moon Knight.
Yeah.
Probably. You know. It's kind of like the same way. Like it's too bad that Batman is such a huge. It's the biggest marketable property Warner Brothers has.
Yeah.
Because I'd love to see an R-rated Batman film, but we'll probably never see it.
No, I can't see that.
Well, and this is what disappoints me about Disney is, you want to be family friendly? Great. Times change, man. Family dynamics change. My daughter saw Deadpool when she was 12.
Not in Disney's world.
Like-
And unfortunately, since Disney is on its way to owning all of
Everything?
all of everything in entertainment and probably else outside of it.
To a scary degree.
It's going to become that thing where most of our entertainment or a large portion is going to become this for a while will be this watered down PG-13 Disney, view of the world. And then, they'll sow the seeds of their own, if not defeat, they'll sow the seeds for somebody else to come be a strong competitor there will become a hunger for something else that somebody will come along and be able to do something else. And maybe that's in the places where like the Amazons will live, that they'll do edgier stuff that you won't see on Disney, and that's how they'll succeed.
Yeah.
But anyways, Ben, thanks again for the scotch. This was awesome.
Yes.
This is a fantastic new thing and a great way to do podcasting, because podcasting, it feels, I'm not going to say necessarily better because I always love podcasting, but definitely a nice change to have a nice glass of scotch in my hand.
Well, it's nice to bring something to this conversation because,
always bring
I'm
something to the
I'm just an
conversation,
idiot
Ben.
and you guys are the knowledgeable ones. So.
Not at all, Ben. You always bring something great to the conversation. Ben, thanks for the scotch and thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Warren, thank you as always for being here.
And thanks, Ben. Yes.
And until next time, I got nothing. We're out.